Andreas Beckwith is a Greek-British fantasy author, media professional, and lifelong storyteller based in the United Kingdom. Having spent much of his career working across the television and media industry, he combines a passion for communication with a deep love of mythology, history, and imaginative fiction. He is a creator of an original fantasy world, Rumithia, developed over many years, drawing inspiration from epic fantasy traditions while exploring themes of power, legacy, ambition, and human nature. His debut novel is The Giant Dynasty, a fantasy ebook that serves in an entry point into a larger interconnected saga that is coming soon. Alongside his writing, Andrews shares insight into the creative process through blog, videos, and discussion on world building, storytelling, publishing, and the evolving role of technology in the creative heart. He is particularly interested in sharing his stories and helping aspiring writers navigate the modern publishing landscape while remaining true to their creative vision. When not writing, Andres enjoys exploring mythology, fantasy literature, music, travel, and the stories that shape cultures and community across the world. And on today's episode of Author Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy and excitement to have on the show today Andres Beckwith together with Cindy Breck co-hosting me in the conversation. Lovely to have you on the show today, Andres. Great to meet you.
Likewise, and thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it.
It's nice to meet you, Andres.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Absolutely. It's exciting that we are here to sit intercontinentally to have this beautiful conversation around the making of your book. So thank you once again for joining in.
Thank you both.
Absolutely. So I would first like to mention, just for the sake of new readers who are just getting to discover who you are, and for the sake of audience on P English literature who are just getting to discover your book, The Giant Dynasty, which I so much love the title name. Quite interesting. Beautiful cover too you've got in there. But then what inspired the story? What inspired the making of this? The title name, the creative process? How does this book get started?
Sure. Yeah. So I wrote it last year, at the end of last year in December, and it came on the back of a period where I left my job, and I was out of work for a while. So I really started working on building an author platform. I set up my blog. I grew a social media profile and started inviting people. Then I moved to video and started creating YouTube videos, and I was really focused on building this platform. And then I moved from then to the newsletter, and I was thinking, well, I want to give people something to entice them into the newsletter. And so I thought, what a better way to do that than offering them an ebook. If they sign up to the newsletter, they get the ebook for free. And so I started thinking, yeah, but what story can I give? Because I'm hoping to publish another book, and I don't want to give away any spoilers. And so the title of my blog, The Chronicles of Rumithia, came about because I'd created basically this chronological list of events that happened in the world around the stories that I've written. And I built that, and I kind of poured a lot of kind of history, taking things out from the stories that I'd written and putting them into this historical list and understanding what came before. And that actually sparked a lot of kind of really cool ideas. And I looked at one particular part and I thought this actually could be written into a story. And so I undertook that, and I thought, I'm going to make this into the Giant Dynasty. And there was another reason as well, because when I was writing the book that comes after the Giant Dynasty, called The Traitor's Eye, there was a period, a section in that in the beginning, where I wanted to get one character to another area, basically. And when I wrote it first time, I just had him randomly come up with the idea. And while, for me, I just needed to get something on the page and get it done. I kept thinking, actually, this is really weak. There needs to be some key motivation to get this character from A to B. And then when I was writing this timeline, through writing that, through writing the history, I was like, this is it. this is the reason that I'm going to now take and put into the book that is going to make it kind of much more legitimate. And so that was kind of the two reasons why I decided to write the Giant Dynasty. And the title is basically, it's kind of a play on words. So it's a dynasty, a family dynasty, but they are also mythical creatures, giants. And so it's the Giant Dynasty. And it was also, a very big, for want of a better word, dynasty in the history of the world that I created.
Mm, fantastic.
It's definitely a wealth of information here. Uh, for the sake of P English literature readers and stuff like this, for people who haven't read your book yet, without giving too much away, could you give the listeners a sneak peek at what some of the themes, subject lines, the actual message of your story in your overall mission?
Yeah, sure. So I think the key themes are power and family, and
Mm,
it's kind of like a game of succession, and so it's how power can kind of corrupt this intimate body, which is the family, and we think traditionally family should care for each other, should love each other, but it's a story about betrayal. So Ali Tech, the main character, when his father dies, he thinks he's going to take up his mantle, but actually his brothers have other ideas and they plot against him to remove him from the line of succession. And
mm,
so the story kind of follows his journey, and not just how he relates with his other three brothers, but also how he relates with his nuclear family, his wife, his son, and also his brother-in-law as well.
mm,
There's a lot of trappings of power, of paranoia as well. And then there's another section as well, kind of a sense of kind of how people shouldn't exceed the limits and boundaries that they have. And so there is an element of that where there is a journey to this abandoned kingdom, and through hubris, Alitek's brother, who usurped him, wants to claim power, and it follows that journey of what happens through this kind of lust for power, and showing kind of the unintended consequences, basically, that kind of reverberate and actually open the door for the next story.
mm.
Sounds like there's an overall theme of betrayal and stuff in this.
Yes, yeah. A succession, betrayal, and yeah, the kind of the ruptures of family, and just how power corrupts, basically.
Yeah, and those I must say are beautiful themes that captivate an audience attention. So you've done a very great job, capturing those in it. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, and yeah, I really kind of like put a lot of thought and time into it, so I'm glad that
Back to
it
life.
kind of resonates.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think it definitely resonate with a lot of people.
Absolutely. Especially when you have family in it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just add as well, in terms of kind of like, I mean, it's fictional, but there were a few gems in there, kind of from my personal experience. So, as I said, I was out of work for a period of time, and so I remember feeling nervous, when I had an interview, and how long is it going to be until they get back to me if I got the job, and I remember reflecting some of this in the book into one of the characters. So one of the Ali Tech, the main character, he's expecting something. I won't say exactly what, but I kind of took what I was feeling at that period of time, this kind of nervousness, and tried to reflect it on, day by day it happens, and he's expecting something, and that kind of nervousness that builds up.
Beautiful. Amazing. Amazing about that. Thank you for the beautiful shot overlay into the making of that. And many great stories explore larger questions, just like we've mentioned, about power, about identity, about family and belonging. What themes were most important to you while writing the Giant Dynasty? And also, were there any real life influences? I know you've mentioned a bit about your work background, etc. Or were
Mm.
there any real life influences? It could be historical, cultural, or personal that shaped the story's setting or atmosphere for you.
Yeah, so yeah, the key themes: succession, power, and family, and the corrosive influence. Also, the kind of the warning to humans about exceeding the limits.
Mm,
And then I think it's very much based in history and
mm,
yeah, historical events that have happened that I've kind of taken and synthesized and melded together to create the story. I have not put so much of my personal background in it, except what I mentioned about, elements of nervousness and, at some periods of time. Um, but yeah, I think most of the influences come from history. That was the kind of idea that I had when I set out. There were several changes along the way, and yeah, I not so much of myself into it.
mm. Wow, fantastic.
And yeah, and an element of current affairs there as well, which I would add into as well.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. Yeah, thank you
I
for
like the fact that
mentioning.
you put historical information in this. And I know a lot of authors put a lot of their personal background or personal aspects of their life in it. So
Mm.
I find it kind of interesting that you say that you didn't do a lot of that.
Yeah, it's more a kind of a story that was created from history. There's certainly some elements of current affairs. You could take a look at some of the characters and say, yes, I think this person or this character is reminds me of this kind of character. We there's no shortage of people in history and current affairs who are very hubristic, who take things too far and think that their power is limitless. And so
Mhm.
I've taken that and kind of and put it into the work. In terms of background, I mean, I guess I added there's a small section, a small poem that I wrote actually in Greek, which is that I've
Oh, wow.
created this fictional language called Hellenian. The Greek word for Greek actually is Ellinika. So I've taken that and put it in there. And so, in that sense, I've kind of added my own personal background into it.
Okay.
Yeah, but as far as my own story, not so much.
Okay. So
Wow.
just to get a little bit more of you,
Mhm.
you're an aspiring debut fantasy writer. So I want to know, like, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned about storytelling, world building, and
Mm.
I mean, even the overall writing process. But I think more so, I want to know what particular character was the hardest one for you to write.
Yeah, sure. So, lessons that I've learned in terms of storytelling,
Mm,
just very much trust the reader because I am a kind of info dumper in remission or a recovering info dumper because I've done when some of my earlier works as well. The first kind of few drafts, I would write the first, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 pages just to complete like chronological history, complete info dump. And I've having got some beta readers to give me feedback. I've slowly gone over that and and whittled it down and reduced it and actually started out telling the story because if people pick up a book and they start reading, just history, especially with attention spans these days, you're just not going to get a reader hooked into the book. And so it's taken me a long time to learn that
mm,
and kind of, yeah, trust the reader will be able to pick up things, understand things. They don't need to know what happened 100 years ago. They don't need to know these are all the races, these are all the languages that exist in
Yeah.
this world. It's about just getting into the story straight away.
mm,
Hmm.
The world building, I'm very much a panster, so make it up as I go along. And and then kind of go back and feed back. Basically, once I've written something, go and kind of write about the history of it, and that way I kind of retro element the work. So be able to go back and say, right, this is something that I think actually could fit into the work as I did before. and actually just provide some context, and then you get richer work. You can either improve what you've already written or use it for something later on. And in one of my other books as well, I remember having done the chronicles, the list, I was able to just go in and kind of drop in a few gems and kind of relate to the history, like, oh, this cave was used by this dragon 100 years ago or something like that. And so it just makes things a little richer. And then difficult characters. I think it's been more difficult for me to write good characters, and there's one particular one in another book that I've written. So, just for context, the Giant Dynasty is the first book of kind of my world and my series that I want to introduce. Then there's the Traitor's Eye, which I hope to come out with either the end of this year or looking more likely next year. And then I've written 2 books of a series. I kept saying it was a trilogy, but it's actually, I've started saying a series now because I don't know how many books I'm going to write. And so the first one is called Gongor's Prophecy, and the second one, The Young Pretender. And with Gongor's Prophecy, which is actually the first book that I wrote, I remember getting a feedback from one particular beta reader, and he said to me, "You know what? This character, yeah, she seems like a good person, but I'm not invested enough." And I really took that and thought, I need to do more work on her and make her, more investable, essentially, and make the stakes clearer to the reader so they can really see, yes, I want to invest in her experience. I want to see how she does. And I'm hoping that everything goes well for her. And so, yeah, I think when it comes to evil characters, I think I'm more, it's easier for me to write, because I think, they're complicated, dark characters and everything. But with the heroine, it's more difficult to make them liked. I think it's easier to make someone disliked than to make someone liked, essentially.
Very,
Wow.
very interesting.
Wow. That's absolutely amazing. You've said very great. I enjoyed every bit of it. Thank you for sharing. And before we proceed, I'd like you to show the book again to the camera just so we can see what it
Yeah.
looks like. The giant. Do you want to talk about the making of the cover? Because I think there's a story behind it. There's a hand in there and there's a sword piercing through it all the way to the floor.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah. So I was thinking at one point of actually having the giants on there, and I did design a picture which I used for my blog. But when in the story, the Giant Dynasty, there's a big thing about swearing loyalty, and so the typical way that in fantasy, where you
Yep.
get a knife and you cut your hand or your arm,
Yep.
and swear in blood. And it's several it's a very consistent theme, and it also shows it shows that, but also there's a deception behind that as well, because when
Mm.
people swear their loyalty, it's not always the case. And it's a consistent theme of both being required to swear loyalty, and then
Uh,
also not always fulfilling that pledge.
mm.
And so, yeah, you can
Wow.
see like the flames in
Fantastic.
the background, which kind of give it that mystery and that kind of like almost like a sinister vibe behind it as well. And
Absolutely.
obviously the knife going through the hand to show
Absolutely.
the power of it.
Oh, that's a
Mhm.
beautiful style you've got. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And one of the things that I love so much is listening to readers' feedback. And you may want to agree
Hmm.
with me. One of the things that makes literature very interesting is how it gets interpreted by different readers in different ways. Some people would get the message the author intended. Some might be close to getting the message. Some might entirely misunderstand the story and interpret it upside down. But as interestingly fun as this sounds, I would like to ask you, how do you feel when readers interpret your work differently than you intended? How does that make you feel as a writer?
Yeah, I just say I completely agree. And when people write things, you can hear so many debates on the internet, like, "Oh, this person meant this," and it's kind of crazy actually, because you can get two very different people getting these two messages. But when it comes to what I want to get across, when people give me feedback, obviously the good feedback is always great to hear, but it's actually better to get constructive feedback. And I found myself being very open to feedback, actually, because
Mm,
while it's very, you sit there, you write it, you think, this is what I'm trying to say, this is what I'm trying to get across, and then I get really excited to hear what people think, when they say, oh yeah, I've read this, and this is what I think. And then it's interesting as well when some people say, oh, I thought you wanted to say this, or I thought it was going here. And it's actually, it's kind of, especially when you get the first few beta readers, it can actually inspire you to show different things in different ways. So for example, in the Traitor's Eye, very early on, I wanted to show, I assumed that the readers would think one thing about the main character, that he wasn't really a good guy. But then one of the readers came back to me, one of the beta readers, who gave me such detailed feedback and said, actually, I kind of was invested in what he was saying, and I was a bit suspicious about these circumstances, even though there were aspects of his character which I didn't like. I thought that there was something behind him. And so that got me thinking, and maybe actually I shouldn't assume that the reader thinks this, and actually play maybe to a bit more of doubt, and ambiguity in what's going on, and not think that that is black and white. And so I think that's taught me a lesson. And when it comes to feedback as well, I certainly, I'm definitely more on the open side when it comes to receiving feedback. But I think, when it comes to feedback, you have to be open to it, of course, and you can't be shut off. But I think I would put myself as perhaps too far on the other side. So when people would say things, I would instantly think, right, I need to go back and change that.
mm,
And I think that's a trap that authors can fall into sometimes. And especially, as you said before, so many people can interpret different things. And I think when getting feedback, when you get when you get several people saying one thing, let's say,
yeah,
oh, this bit wasn't clear, that's something that you can really, hone in and look to change. But
yeah,
some people may say, oh, it's, oh, I thought this, and they're the only person of, 4 or 5 people that said that. And then maybe that's just one person's interpretation. So I
yeah.
think, taking feedback is really important, and listening to it, but also kind of knowing when to stand your ground, essentially, and say, no, this is right. And yeah, I've kind of, yeah, it's something that I've struggled with, but I think I'm on the right path now.
I definitely agree with you that there is a struggle, but when you're blessed to have multiple beta readers telling you the
Mm,
same thing, you do need to hear that. You do need to listen
yeah.
to that. Yeah, you genuinely do. I want to take you on the dark side.
Mhm.
This what I want to talk to you about is rather controversial. Um, but there's this issue with technology right now, the rapid increase that we have going on in AI and how it's
Mm.
rapidly changing authorship. And I'd like to get a general idea of what you genuinely feel about AI evolving
Mm.
in this world of writing that we have right now.
Yeah, I think it can be a massive help, but also hindrance. So I've um, I've used AI a lot for my website. Being able to create images, uh, create ideas for posts on social media, topics that I can discuss on there, even video content as well. Thinking of pipelines. And in terms of my author journey, my author platform, it just wouldn't have been possible without AI, in terms of the ideas, designing, getting ideas for platforms and everything like that. When it comes to writing, I've used it to review my work, and I think it can come up with some great ideas. It can
Yeah.
say, actually, I think you're rushing this, or you're doing that. I personally draw the line when it comes to writing, using AI to write. So, for example, giving it an idea and say, oh, I want this scene in a shop and then someone's going to get angry. Can you write that? I think I would never do that, and I would never instruct AI to write something for me, because we're authors and it's supposed to be the joy of the art, of the labor of actually doing it
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so, and if you're going to use AI, what's the point?
Yeah.
I do think there's a lot of grey areas in terms of when it comes to editing and things like that. I've
Absolutely.
put my book, the Tracer's Eye. I put the whole thing in AI to get its feedback, and there were some phrases which it picked out and said, this could be phrased better, and so I would look at changing those things. But if you, for example, I did a test with my girlfriend. We were with my daughter, and she said, "Oh, I wanted a story about several different fairies and everything like that." And so we just put the instruction into AI, and it came up with a short story for a
Okay.
child.
Wow.
Now, but there's no way that I could claim that I've written that, because
Yeah.
it's just a few instructions.
Yeah.
Like it's like saying to George Lucas, do a film with space spaceships, space travel, some magical swords, and everything like that. And then when he writes Star Wars, you say, yeah, you need to give me credit, and that's not the case. But I think AI can really help when it comes to actually giving you tips in terms of your writing, and it's an instant thing. And so I'm sure you guys find it as well when someone first reads your book, and it's like that excitement about what they can think, what they're going to think, what feedback they're going to have for you. And I really love that, and the fact that AI is there and can give it to you
Yeah.
in seconds is a great thing. And so I use that extensively, or when I'm struggling for an idea and I'm thinking, I've written this, but I'm not sure. What do you think? What's missing here? But I always use it for that, the kind of tips and feedbacks, rather than expecting it to write anything. And yeah, just to Cindy's point, it is very controversial. I happen to post something on social media, on these groups that I'm in, and I get some guy writing saying, you use AI, and they went and stalked me and on LinkedIn and saying, yep, I found that you're pro AI and all of this, and it's stealing work. And I thought, wow, okay, so I know that could be a very very controversial topic.
Yeah. It is. It
But
is.
Wait,
I'm just
Yeah.
honest with it, and I say this is what I use it for, this is what I don't use it for, and I think it's going to be inevitable. It's just about kind of using your own principles, and also trying to stay true to what you're doing. And I think
Yeah.
all authors should do that, and not give in to the temptations of using AI, because then we'll just have AI slop, and everyone sounding the same. And so use it constructively to improve yourself, rather than taking over from you.
Mm. Wow.
that's that's actually a really good response. I almost would like to throw that question at Peter, because I mean, he's a writer too, and I mean, we've never even, that's probably a question for a later date, Peter.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting. I mean, it's you see it's over. I even get email from authors sometimes who would say, okay, I've written this book, and by the time you click on it and go through on Amazon, even by
Mm.
reading through the description page, you can tell this is AI generated
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
it's only just fluffiness. It's just there. And I'm
yeah.
like, oh no, I'm not even comfortable interviewing an author who has written, I think I made a post about it on my Facebook page, who has
Mm.
written a book about it, because it's like, it's not your work. You can't claim an
Yeah.
authorship of ownership on a work that's not entirely yours. So it's a very broad, very debate
Mm.
title on the internet, on Facebook, on Book Talk,
Yeah.
on Good to Society on Facebook, particularly that I belong to, etc. It's a long
Yes.
conversation, really.
Yeah, and,
It's,
and I just add a couple of things as well. I said I've used it for editing, and I've kind of talked about some of the good things about it. But when I put my whole book it started forgetting things that were at the beginning. It was like, how about you mention this connection to this person?
Oh,
It's
to
like,
the other
have
side.
you read that?
Mm,
It's there at the beginning. And so I don't think it can replace humans. I think it's a good tool, a clever tool to get some instant gratification of
yeah,
feedback.
support.
But, a human editor who is a professional is just going to do a
Yeah.
much, I think, better job. Same with graphic designers as well. I've
Mm,
used some things when I'm posting on my blog to create a quick image. But when I come to my next book, I'm going to have a graphic designer actually create what I want. Maybe AI can, save me a bit of money and kind of getting the idea to them and saying, this is what I want. Can you touch that up?
yeah,
But yeah, I think that AI can be very helpful, but also very limiting as well.
absolutely.
I like how you've said that you like to use it as a tool.
Mm,
Um, I actually find that some of AI is a great resource for a tool, you know, especially when you get stranded on the road and you don't know which
Where to go?
plugin well, you don't know which how to hook up the cables to your car
Mm,
yeah,
and you got to figure it out, otherwise you're going to get in trouble. Red goes with red and black goes with black or something on the battery. So it is a great tool, but I
yeah.
but I do agree with you on the creative aspect
mm,
that it should not be used. However, as a resource or as a Google
mm,
um,
Yeah.
resource, I could see that a search engine, in other words.
Yeah.
yeah,
You
yeah,
that could be different, but right now anything seems to be AI, whether it's Grammarly, Pro Writing Aid, whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And just to Peter's point earlier as well, like you can tell the slop a mile off. Like I remember
Mm,
seeing on LinkedIn, it was like the best investors I've met don't ask about ROI first; they ask about risk, and it's like, that's just so obvious and so crass. And
mm,
I think it's very depressing what you say, Peter. If you see that in a book and
mm,
it's so obvious from the off, it's like,
yeah.
yeah, then that would make me despair.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh,
but I think for P English literature listeners, and Peter, I do want to interject this. People have to realize many authors are throwing their stuff in to be edited, and
Mm,
it's coming back. And they've written these books themselves, and it's coming back and saying that they didn't write it; it was AI generated. And I mean, just because it says it's AI generated does not mean
does
it
not mean
is.
that it's AI generated.
mm,
That's true.
Exactly. Because I want to make sure that people know that out there. Because I
Mm,
had a friend test it out and it's like, wow. And he's a fantastic writer.
mm.
And it's like, wow. So we have to be careful trusting
Yeah,
AI.
mm,
So,
yeah,
anyhow,
and I would say as well, I put just as an experiment, I put in my next book, The Traitor's Eye, into AI for review, but I wouldn't do that for the other books because you don't know where it goes, and I'm just cautious about the IP and everything, and the books that
yeah.
I'm really proud of and the storylines. And I was like, I wouldn't want that to like be ingested into AI and somehow
That's
spurted out to someone
true.
else.
Yeah.
So I'm quite cautious about that. I thought with the Traitor's Eye, I'll do it as an experiment.
Mm,
But the others, I've not put them. Perhaps there's a couple of sections where I was struggling to write and I wanted an opinion on what I'd written and where to increase the pacing and things like that, or some ideas. And so get that from AI, but never a whole chapter or definitely not a whole book.
yeah.
oh,
And that's good for clarification.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. So apart from the Giant Dynasty, do you have any other works you're currently working on or that you've authored aside from that?
Yeah, so the Giant Dynasty is actually my fourth book that I've written, but the first one to be published. So bear with me here. So the first book that I wrote was back in my second year of university. I finished it in 2009, which was called Gongol's Prophecy. It was the first book of a series that I wanted to write. And then I didn't have a clue what would come after it. So as I do a lot is I started writing backwards, and I wrote a prelude to that, which was called The Rise and Fall, and then I changed its name to The Traitor's Eye, which is the book that I next want to publish. And then after that, I wrote that in, I think, 2011, 2012, maybe finished by 2013. And then during the pandemic, I sat down to write the second book of the series. It was like I had these ideas in my head, and I was like, I'm not sure this could work, and I have to have the plot thrashed out in my head before I will sit down. I will never, although I want to at some point, sit down without any idea of where I'm going. I always have to have it, this is how it's going to start, this is how it's going to end, these are the main things. Well, one moment it just clicked for me, and so I sat down and I wrote that in about a year, which was then a record because the others had taken just so long. I'm just finished editing both, so it's like 15 years it's taken to actually get to a point where it's fully edited. And then the Giant Dynasty I wrote last year, and that took 6 weeks, so a big improvement on 15 years and even the year 18 months that it took me to write the second book of the series. But it's kind of disjointed chronologically in how I've written it.
I'm impressed when you say 6 weeks you wrote the Giant Dynasty.
Well, remember, I didn't have a job, so I had all this time on my hands.
Even at that, Peter, have you finished a book in 6 weeks?
No, not even a poetry collection.
Oh, I would say as well that this is about 22,000 words, whereas my other books are 70, 80, 90. So
okay.
I don't want to take away any merit that I may be getting, but it was a lot less.
Yeah. Hey, boy. Yeah, but even that's a lot. So, I'm not a prolific writer. I mean, I have too much else I'm doing. So, but could you tell us just a little bit about like what your publishing life is as a published author? Are there any challenges you've encountered in the process of writing?
When it comes to publishing, I published the Giant Dynasty. I put it out, as I said, something to attract people to sign up to my newsletter. And then I thought, having got some more feedback, and people were really impressed with it, and I sat back and I thought, actually, even though it's a smaller book and it was written as an ebook, it's actually some of my best work. And so I decided, you know what, is a lifetime ambition to say I'm an author and a published author as well. And so I decided to publish it. And so the actual process of publishing something is not independently is not very difficult, because you go on Amazon. I remember I got the Giant Dynasty with the bar there saying not for resale, and I would sit and I would look at the physical manuscript to go through and say, oh yeah, no, here this is a semicolon needed here, and a few other details as well. And then I was able to take those corrections, put them onto the Word document, upload it, and then I think within a few hours it was published. And I think that that process in terms of how long it takes is actually quick. But what I'm finding and what I had no illusions about is how much work you have to put in to then promoting it, to posting content on social media, putting videos out, and all of that. And that is, I'm not someone who's finished that journey. I'm very much on the journey at the moment. I can just say it's a lot of work, and getting your work out there and talking about it. And so that side is very difficult. I did try before on the traditional publishing side, but I do find that it's quite old-fashioned and limiting. So I'll give you an example. They say that you have to connect your work with and relate it to authors that have been published in the last 10 years or 5 years. But for me, it was quite a difficult thing to do, because I'd actually written my book 15 years ago, the Gongul's Prophecy and the Traitor's Eye 15 years ago. And the story is the story. And so no matter what the modern trends are, romanticy and these kind of things. I'm going to write ultimately what I want to write, and I wouldn't adapt it for, what happens to be trendy at the moment. And so those are the kind of areas where I would, uh, you know, uh, find myself kind of raging against the machine. And also, I found it strange, especially in fantasy. I remember hearing from someone that actually agents don't like to hear that you've got a series written, because they will sign up for it, they want to publish. And if it doesn't do well, then they don't want to be on the hook for a series. And I was like, but you want something else to sell. If you've got a really good book, you want the author to have like a pipeline of content basically to put out. So those were some confusing things. And so I decided, at the moment, I'm going to go down the independent route. I think that's the best way. And, I was also quite surprised. I was listening to some podcasts from authors, and I thought, trad publishing, you get the deal, and then you can sit back and the agent, the publishers are going to do everything in terms of promoting it. But
Mm.
that's not the case anymore. It's you have to have your own platform, your own social media. You've got to be out there promoting things. Just because you get a trad deal doesn't mean that you can sit back. And so I think that's a big change when it comes to independent authors and traditional authors. And so even though the traditional authors have the agent, a lot of the activity and the work that they have to put in is quite similar.
Mm. Wow.
Well, thank you so much for answering that question.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
you're welcome, and yeah, I'm happy to share all the details of the journey and how it goes for me.
That's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And just in case we have some viewers watching, I would love to get a copy of your book. On what platform can they find it on?
Yeah, of course. So there's a couple of ways to get it. So first of all, on Amazon, it's available obviously here physical copy. You can also get it as a Kindle. It's the Giant Dynasty by Andreas Beckwith. Also, I still have the first version available on my for my newsletter subscribers. So if you go onto my blog, Chronicles of Rumithia, you'll be prompted to sign up to the newsletter, and so you can do so. So there's a few differences. That's version one. Version two has had some corrections and some changes and a few additions in terms of the text. I'd say it's 90% the same. So yeah, if people want to go buy it, they can buy it on Amazon. I'm hoping to put it on Goodreads at some point in the near future, but right now it's on Amazon, either paperback or Kindle, and then also the newsletter as well.
Mm. Wow, that's amazing. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Andreas Beckwith book directly on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles, on his website, and also on other platforms. I also left a link to his social media pages for possible followings. So I want to say a very big thank you to you, Andres, for joining us today to have this beautiful conversation with the making of your book that I so much enjoy talking to you about. And this was such a beautiful and awesome conversation. And thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you very much, Peter. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. I really love your platform, and thank you, Cindy, as well. It's been great talking with both of you.
It is definitely great. I've truly enjoyed talking with you, more so listening to your take, a different take on things with AI and everything. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
well, yeah, it's so evolving as well. So I think
that it is.
it's just the start, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about in that space.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely a
I think we
pleasure.
are. It
Yeah,
was nice to have met you.
likewise. Thank you very much.
Yeah.